Hello, class. My name is Raul Roman, and I will be presenting on Valujet Flight 592. Valujet's success. Valujet was an airline company that operated between 1992 through 1997. Valujet started off as a very small airline company, but quickly expanded with the ridiculously low-priced airfares. Valujet went from running an operation with a few planes to owning just under 60 aircrafts and operating in various different cities. Valujet's growth was record-setting, and this expansion was never before seen. Cost-cutting measures. In order to keep Valujet profitable, cutting cost was of utmost importance to the company's executives. Valujet cut corners by utilizing retired foreign aircrafts. The average age of their fleet was 27 years. A well-maintained aircraft of 27 years does not pose any hazards. However, these aircrafts were not maintained regularly. Poorly subcontracted maintenance. Valujet would subcontract their maintenance and repairs to a company called SaberTech. SaberTech had underqualified, underpaid, and overworked employees taking on meticulous jobs for Valujet. This lack of experience caused many inadequate repairs. Along with this, Valujet would often only repair what was absolutely necessary. Any repair that was not of dire need was left unattended until the problem worsened. Falsified documents. In order to be able to turn a profit with such low-priced airfares, Valujet needed to constantly have planes in the air no matter the cost. The longer planes sat for repairs, Valujet saw this as lost opportunity. In order for their planes to be compliant with the rules set by the Federal Aviation Administration, Valujet would falsify maintenance statement records and would sign off on repairs that had not been performed. Valujet would falsify inspection checklists prior to going airborne. Early warning signs. Valujet's lack of maintenance and repairs eventually caught up to them when they had multiple severe issues with their airplanes. Valujet airline fleet suffered issues such as electrical malfunctions, cabin pressurization issues, and engine malfunctions. These frequent occurrences were met with a multitude of safety violations and citations issued by the FAA. However, these fines were very small, and the FAA lacked the adequate oversight to address the correction of these violations. Valujet's unethical business culture. Valujet's unethical business practices were not just exclusively held by the executives who lined their pockets with money. Valujet staff and pilots were discouraged in reporting failures or broken systems on planes. In one instance, a Valujet pilot was fired for noting the various issues that the planes were riddled with. The pilots and staff were paid miserable wages, and this lack of compensation only resulted in the employees to care less. Flight 592. Valujet's Flight 592 departed from Miami, Florida to Atlanta, Georgia on May 11th, 1996. Prior to the airplane departing, there were some oxygen containers that had been stored on the cargo bay of the plane. These oxygen containers produce oxygen through a chemical process that releases heat. These oxygen containers were improperly being transported on a commercial flight, and they lacked a lid in order to prevent them from accidentally igniting. Through the movement of the airplane, the oxygen containers were accidentally ignited, and the heat, in combination with the rest of the cargo, caught on fire quickly. The tragedy of Flight 592. To make matters worse, fire suppression systems were not obligatory on airplanes during this time, and oxygen systems that were on board of the flight fueled the fire even more. Flight 592 had flown just over 10 miles as this occurred, and they radioed in to perform an emergency return. Unfortunately, the passengers and flight of the crew all succumbed to smoke inhalation, and the plane plummeted into the Florida Everglades, and this resulted in 110 deaths. Accountability. Valujet was not criminally held liable for the deaths of all 110 people on Flight 592 and was only civilly pursued, and all those cases were settled out of court. The amounts for which were paid off to the victims' families were left undisclosed. Instead, SaberTech was held criminally liable for the manslaughter of all the victims in the flight. SaberTech was able to get most of the charges acquitted, along with two employees who were charged with conspiracy and falsifying statements. SaberTech ended up only having to pay a fine of 500,000 and made a few donations in order to essentially get away scot-free. What to take from this? Valuejet put profit over human lives, and this is a combination of poor federal oversight and regulations. Valuejet cut extreme corners in order to keep up with their aggressive expansion, which spread them very thin. SaberTech falsified many repairs and maintenances, which were allowed these defective airplanes to continue operation. The FAA failed in halting Valuejet's operations when they had a poor track record of safety violations, emergency landings, and unethical business practices. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.